Hey, Adam. Yes, it works.
We both have our GitLab.
Yes, yes. I've got the sweatshirt that they sent us for Prague because we didn't get to go last year. So,
Okay.
hey, Christy,
Hey, since we're waiting for a noob, I'm going to go to the
do it. Take advantage.
So Lori, how was the conference?
It was good. Yeah, I really appreciate it. I've got a list of 4 talks that I want to go back and watch again because they were really insightful. And it was let's see here. Like impact, UX research and impact, and 3 ways to strengthen research and the impact. And there's a couple of others. So yeah, they were good.
I want to hear all about it.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Hey, Anoop.
Hello.
Christy's gonna be here in just a second. she ran while she could. I think her day was just like mine, back to back to back. And we'll wait for her to come back. And I also invited Jackie Porter to this as well. So I know she's got interest. There she is. All right. So I'm recording just so everybody knows. Thank you for carving the time out of your days for this. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to do a quick touch base to just make sure that we're heading in the same direction and we're going to get useful stuff for everybody for this project. We have not started to recruit yet, which is perfect time to just touch base and get a realignment on it. I put links at the top of the agenda for the main issue, the research issue, the recruiting issue, all the things. Anoop, I know you and I have talked through the discussion guide. Nothing has changed since you and I talked last. Still the same, but I wanted just to go over the high level approach to everything and what we're hoping to get out of it. So the idea behind this is obviously to find out how people are working across what we call stages, but they may not recognize them as such. They just do their job, right? And so what the idea has morphed into is this concept of talking to people, end users, 3 to 5 from the same internal organization at a large enterprise company who is mature in their DevOps practice. So they will have more than one stage that they're doing, and we can talk to them about their tools and get a sense from each one of those people what it is that they do, what are the tools that they're using, and how is that handoff handled between that person and whomever they're handing their stuff off to, so we can understand what are the tools that they're using to do that. Like, are there gaps? Are there frustrations? What is going on there? And also pairing those conversations with one of a team lead of sorts, somebody who's in charge of these people, basically, to understand from their perspective, because they're a little higher up, how do they feel it's all going? Because you've got the individual perspective, and then you've got somebody who's like, okay, I'm kind of orchestrating all of these conversations. They might be able to have a different purview of, I see these other frustrations at a higher level, or areas of opportunity, or things are going great, and this is why. So that's where we are now. The output of that is intended to be themes. So these themes are not as granular as an actionable recommendation of do X and then Y will happen. It is more at the level of people in these types of organizations are having issues when this kind of data needs to be transferred between team members, and this is why they're having these issues. And the resulting themes are intended for those stage groups at our company to take on and internalize and look at to say, okay, let's dive deeper into this particular area of opportunity for us and figure out if there are any other dirty details that we didn't have in the theme, so we can actually go after and break those barriers and provide opportunity for it to be easier if they use our product in those areas. So we do intend to talk to people who not just don't use GitLab, like they could use any kind of tool in their DevOps practice. So there's a potential for a wide variety of information that we get back from people, because as we know, our competitors are very, very varied with their products. So that's a short overview of the project as it stands. And I would love to hear from everybody on the phone call. Is this awesome, good? Do we need to modify it at all to ensure that we're going to get what my stakeholders need out of this project? Thoughts?
I think, Christy, you have the question. Next question.
Sorry, I was furiously typing questions. Okay,
Hey.
so, and these legitimately are questions that I just don't know the answer to. So please don't read a prejudgment into them. I
Oh
just wanna
no,
be
not at all.
on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question was, how many companies do you intend to target?
Well, Adam and I talked about this a few weeks ago, and I had did the math real quick and went, oh my God, 100 people. So I think we're going to start with 2 companies, one of a SaaS and one of a self-managed company to start out with, and then hopefully target internal org at each of them to see how this approach will go. Hopefully it will go well, and then we can expand. I don't have enough understanding of how things change in industries, but if we're looking at enterprise level companies with a mature DevOps practice, I'm not expecting that to change that much between a bank and like a Dell, maybe some more security stuff with a bank, financial things, oversight, but things like that. But if you guys have purview into that, please let me know. This is a great time to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll say, so I do think there probably are some pretty significant differences between industries. That said, I think starting with 2 companies is fine, because you could start with 2 companies and kind of take a step back and go, okay, what did we learn? What do we want to do next? But I do think you'll see some, and you might decide based on what you learned from those first 2 companies that, okay, we've learned enough high level, now we know enough to start digging in deeper and making sure we include other industries in that.
Are there any industries that you feel we should target for these 2 initial companies?
I think product is better prepared to answer that.
Yeah, so I think if we got 2 companies that have many, it wouldn't, like, for me personally, self-managed versus SaaS, having a flavor of each is helpful. But the new model that you're choosing, which is going to one company and understanding their entire DevOps journey and seeing the pain points, I think that's great. I think it'll help us inform the entire product and give themes, because some of the themes, like you said, Lori, like when that handoff happens, here are the friction points. And if you surface this information on the X, on the left side of the stage and right of the stage, things would be easier. That sort of knowledge will be helpful as a general principle. And I would love to see some of those insights come in, and we can add them to our product principles around cross-stage features and things like that. This could even be a model for strategic research in the future. So I'm excited about the methodology. I know there are implementation challenges, so let's go through them, because I think we skipped through Adam's questions.
Yeah, so we hadn't gotten to that one yet. Adam, your question, do you want to voice it?
Yeah, so Lori, we spoke about this, but I'm just asking the question more publicly again. And as you can probably tell, I'm more of a pessimist by nature. So thinking about how this would be done, thinking about experience doing studies like this, it can be really hard to try to find multiple users who you're looking for in the same company.
Right.
So I just wanted to ask, what if they can't be found? If there's a plan B, things like that.
Yeah. I was hoping that we'll be able to do this with the same company, because then we can get a consistent narrative. If we cannot do it with within the same company, we're going to need to talk to more people for this first round to get that consistent narrative from people. I talked to Jeff, and he had a great idea about snowball. He called it snowball recruiting. I think it's called technically snowball sampling. But to add at the end of the screener, hey, do you know other people in your group or who you work with who'd like to do this too? Please give us their information. We will reach out to them. So I'm hopeful that that will help us to get people from the same internal orgs, because if we don't, I don't know out there how much variation there is, but my researcher gut tells me you're going to need to talk to more people if you can't get them from the same organization, because there's going to be more variation. So I was trying to keep this initial effort small and manageable. So like Christy said, we can get some feedback fast and take action on it. But if we can't, it will most likely require more people to talk to.
More people outside of other companies. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. I put this in the agenda. My guess is our best bet to do this is to rely on some existing relationships we have for companies who have a stake in our success, and kind of like do a hand, like a touchy, like, hey, we need your help. Will you company help us find these, like this type of scenario? I put an example. Yeah, and Jackie's adding some more. I put one example in the agenda that I won't say since we're recording. Sure. But yes, those are other great. Yes, all of those are great examples that Jackie's adding.
Yes, perfect. I love that idea, Jackie. I was actually working with one of the TAMs to get his company, which I won't mention either, to talk with me, but they haven't scheduled time yet. So I think that's a great. I think that's definitely where I should head with this. I think it'll give us a faster turnaround than just having an ask out there, and then we can take action. So I love that.
The cab is honestly, in some of the companies that Jackie has listed are in our cab, but I feel like the cab is probably our best inroad.
Yeah.
I think one approach that we haven't really considered is looking at our contacts list in Salesforce and considering all the levels and organizations where we hit. And if we naturally hit more levels of an organization in a particular contact list, that might be a really natural fit for us to go in and start mapping their DevOps journey. So that could be a really low friction way to work with the account team to identify these targets.
I think that's an interesting idea. And I don't think you're necessarily suggesting this, but I'm gonna call it out as what I probably wouldn't do is to then go to those individuals and try to engage them one by one. We'd have to still go in with a coordinated, like, we want these people to talk to us. Somebody at that company help us coordinate this.
Right, approach the account manager, but make sure that we're looking at one that we've already have sourced at multiple levels.
Yep, definitely.
So do you think it's critical for this research to get users from the same company?
It depends. The question you're asking is the triangle of expectations. It's, good and fast and, cheap. If we could get them from the same company, I think we can get some answers faster. It's not crucial and critical to get them from the same company in order to make this a success. But if we're talking timelines and we don't want this to go very many quarters, we're going to need them from the same companies to get that idea of a cohesive piece of feedback. Otherwise, I think you're going to have too many variables, and you can still do it. You're just going to talk to a lot more people in order to get that consistency.
So this actually kind of leads into my next question, which I asked very poorly in the agenda because I was trying to get it out of my head so I remembered what I was going to ask. I think if we are trying, I'm going to try my best to say this. If what we think is important is to look at the relationship, like a relational aspect within a company and the teams and how they are interacting with each other, then yeah, we have to have from the same company. If what we're more interested in is there are friction points between our stages, it doesn't matter whether it's a company where one person works across multiple stages or various teams are handing off to each other. If our point is just the friction points, then you probably don't need them all from the same company, right? Because you could talk to somebody from a company and say, like, hey, we know you're using this. You're at a level at which we would expect that you're seeing across the things that people are doing. Tell us about the pain points. The upside of that would be that you'd get a broader perspective too. So, because look, if we're going to do multiple companies, I don't think we should do a ton to start. I think that's biting off more than we can chew. The risk is we are only hearing from 2 companies and we are getting a very insular view into those particular pain points, so that the themes could be misleading. I hope I said that in an eloquent enough way, because it just came right off the top.
No, totally. I totally get your point. Yes, I've thought about that as well. I think that it all comes down to what are we looking for? So we're looking to see what it's like almost a top, very, very aspirational job to be done statement of, I do my job. And we want them to tell us how they do their job and what tools they use and how they work with other people to do their job. So because we're not limiting it to only GitLab users either, they can use GitLab. They don't have to use GitLab. They just need to be mature in their DevOps practices. There's a wide variety of information that we can get from people. Meaning,
so that leads me to my next question. I'm skipping over you, Adam. We'll come back to you, but it's too good of a segue for me to hold back.
Yes.
That I am a little bit worried about that when I hear this. So yes, this is generative research, but what you are describing sounds wildly broad to me. And what I'm worried about is instead of coming back with, so GitLab, you have a product today. You know that product has challenges with being connected just with the features that you have now. I think what we want is to understand how to connect existing features. What I'm worried about with this approach is you might come out with, oh, here are the new markets we should pursue. And so product, look at you and go, what's valuable to you now? What would you prefer?
I would replace the word worried with super excited. No, I'm not, I'm kidding. I'm only half kidding. So I think part of the strategic research and where we want to go. So for a second, let's just pause the fact that we have a OKR, we have finished this quarter, right? Is how we want to operate as a team moving forward. And this is always going to be a problem, this sourcing the right type of interviews to conduct and the right people to talk to. So yes, we might get a tangent and we might get a lot of noise because we only interviewed 1 or 2 companies. But I look at this more like, if for a second, imagine we were able to figure out a recipe to make this happen. And every quarter we interviewed 2 companies and we added those as an iteration to our overall understanding. Next year, we would have interviewed 10 or 12 companies, and that amazing end-to-end picture that we'll get is invaluable. So that's the sort of the greedy mindset in me that's liking this idea, and I can see all the implementation challenges as well. So I'll pause there and see if there's any feedback on that.
Yeah, I'll say I want to reiterate what Anoop just said, which is the OKR is not the point. I absolutely agree with that. The point is to get valuable insights from research. And for me, like product, y'all are who this is for. So if you are excited about what we're bringing back, then I am pleased with that, because these really are 2 separate paths. And that's why I asked, what's important to you now? Is it more important to have the more tactical friction points so we give a more seamless experience to what exists today? Or is it more important for you to hear, hey, conceptually, this is how teams are working together? You could tell me, yes, go for conceptual. You could tell me, oh, wait, friction is more important today. Then let's do conceptual stuff next. And I agree with you also, Anoop, that if we did, to your point, 2 per quarter over time, that I don't have a problem with that approach either, as long as you get what you need.
Yeah. So I'll say crawl, walk, run. I think this is pretty aspirational. So if we can't even pull off friction points between 2 stages, I don't know what chance we have to pull off more synthesized view across multiple things, right? So I'm fine with the crawl, walk, run approach. I'm fine with like cast a wide net to 5 customers and maybe 2 of them bite, and of those 2, maybe we get 80% on each one, and that's good enough. And we'll learn from this, because we sounds like we've not done this here before, so we'll learn from this. Jackie, do you have any inputs?
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering if this is like a wording thing where we believe that adoption and reducing friction are not the same thing. You know, like the way this is worded, when I look at this, it's like we believe that we must reduce friction in order to facilitate adoption. But that's a hypothesis.
Yes.
That we're assuming in this. So really, like, the KR should be, must we reduce adoption? And the research should be in this evaluation of that organization. Do we need to reduce friction? And how should product reduce friction in order to encourage adoption between stages?
Yeah. Yeah, the KR itself is loaded with...
Yeah, because when I look at this KR, it really is misleading.
Well, but we do want to go into research with a hypothesis that we can prove or disprove.
Right.
So that might have been intentional. So that's why Adam and Lori, what do y'all think?
I didn't write the KR. For me, the KR doesn't have to be the hypothesis. We just need it somewhere. So, yeah.
Okay. Tactically, what is blocking you, and where can we help?
Well, one of Adam's questions at the bottom is something that I wanted to clear up today. It's team findings versus individual friction points as outcomes of this. I just want to make sure that when I go into these interviews that I'm asking the right questions, and I'm going to get you guys the data that you need to move forward. So let's talk about that. Adam, would you like to voice that more?
Yeah, I think that I heard things in the last 5 minutes to answer this, where it sounds like it's teams. So what that means to me is that it's like full throttle ahead for targeting companies and getting those 3 to 5 users. If that doesn't happen, maybe we can get together again to talk about what we can do next. And maybe we set the date for that, maybe a month prior to the end of the quarter. So that's almost a month from now, I guess. So that gives you a full month to recruit, I think, which is a lot. So if I'm wrong in that assumption or in that interpretation, everyone on this call, that the focus is teams versus individual friction points, because I just want to make that clear for Lori, so it's crystal clear for everyone. Because initially, in the inception of this research project, I think one of the focuses was some friction points, and that. So it seems like it shifted a little bit to be more about the team. So I just want to make sure that's crystal clear.
That's why I spent the first part of this playing devil's advocate and trying to poke on it and make sure. So, and I want to be clear that I am happy either way, as long as product, you are getting things that are valuable. But we just want to make sure. So sounds like
Same with me. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like what you prefer is the team insights at the end of this.
I think so, because I think the individual friction points may not give us then it will start becoming more prescriptive, like go fix this thing from here to there, and then how do I prioritize with my hire, what I'm hearing from my customers versus, hey, thematically, this is what the teams are looking for. Now you have this insight, now go make the product better based on what you know you can do.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And I think for the future, it seems to me that one of our challenges is going to continue to be like recruiting. And
Yes.
so what can we do to sort of create, like, it would be very nice if we said, we have identified capacity to interview 45 people and we have signed them up for interview for the next quarter. And these are the profiles they have. Because then we can just focus our user research on what's available instead of focusing on aspirational and then going and trying to search for the users. And like we spent weeks trying to find them, right? And that's not, I'm sure that's pretty frustrating for you, Lori, as a researcher. You just want to talk to people and like, where are they? Like, just if I can get them, I can do my job. What do you all think? What can we do there?
Yeah, I think the end users for this one, this is an interesting recruit. And I was talking to Adam about this a week or two ago about how the strategic research recruits are different from the other recruits that we're doing for design and product. They're more complex in some respects. Sometimes we're looking for a user persona that we don't even have in our database because they're not the end user. They're somebody who signs a contract. They don't actually use it. Sometimes we're looking for things like this, like a group of people from the same organization. We don't even capture, we have no way to know in our database where people even work. We have to then send them out a survey that asks them where you work. Can you recommend other people where you work? So they are getting more complex. And Adam and I had chatted about the idea of using a third-party recruiter, a company who might specialize in more complex recruits like this. We have not done that here yet. And we haven't had to. We haven't had these complex things yet, but that might be something we want to consider in the future for a faster turnaround. Like I could have already been talking to people the last 3 weeks, but even for Jackie's project for the Dakota persona, we can't find them. I know they exist, but we can't find them. So that's another strategic effort that's so crucial to ops that I can't deliver on to her because we don't have the recruit done.
So Christy, should we make this a little high risk item to the E group? Because it seems like with the legal implications of GDPR and things like that, it's just becoming very, very hard for us to, do our job in some ways.
So long story short, because we're almost out of time. I believe that the GDPR issue hopefully is being shelved again. My assertion is we do not need to worry about it. We have no evidence that we need to worry about it. My guidance to my team has been move forward as you have been moving forward. Legal is kind of like waving hands and saying, we don't fully agree, but they have not said you cannot do this. And we don't think there's any reason to think we can't do this. I think we're okay there. I'm going to run it by Eric J tomorrow just to make sure that he doesn't wildly.
I want to ask a very simple question. Yep. If we, in our SaaS product, and for that matter, in our self-managed product, simply created a box which said, if you would like to participate in user research.
That's where I was going. So Farnoosh made that request 6 months ago. It has been in the growth team's backlog for a long time. She picked it up again yesterday. She is refreshing those issues. There's some technical feasibility that needs to be looked into, but she is going to come, I believe, with a request to you next week about doing exactly that.
Thank you.
Adam, did I get any of that wrong? Because you've been involved in those conversations too.
That was all All correct. Yes.
Yes. The last thing I'll add, just for in the interest of time, is I think we need help recruiting strategic research participants. I think we could be getting more help internally before we have to go look at external agencies. External agencies are wildly expensive for this type of recruit. I have seen quotes come in that would
field work.
Right?
yeah.
But if you could get more engagement from TAM, customer success, even PMs with those customer relationships they had, that's the first thing that I would do.
And it's not that I haven't tried. I'm not really sure what the barrier is there. I feel like we need to dive a little bit deeper into, especially the TAMs.
That might be where we need help, is to help those leaders understand why this is important and push that. I think we're getting ignored. Their teams don't understand why this is important, but if their leaders were saying this is important and this is why, we might get a better response.
It's an account saturation thing, because we have all of these product managers also talking to their accounts for research, and then we have the strategic initiative talking to their accounts for research. So it could just be a saturation thing.
Then to prioritize.
Who could help us with that?
I think we have thousands of customers, if not more. So I will help you with that. I'll work with David Sakamoto, who's the head of customer success. So send that my way and I'll work with him.
Thank you.
I'm happy to help with that as much as I can too. So.
Yeah, we can both get on a call with him. He loves the sync conversations. So once we give him some information, we can really impress upon him the value of this. I think he'll get it. He understands this really well as well.
Yes,
We'd love to have this.
Yes. Last thing I'll mention before we all go, Jackie, you brought up rewriting the KR. Sure, we can rewrite the KR. The KR needs to align with whatever makes sense. So I don't think I'm the expert here, but I'm totally open to however that needs to be rewritten.
Yeah, we can talk more about that in the issue. It was more of an observation of what are we trying to actually attain out of the OKR and what was written in the issue. So
I agree. It seems like the focus has shifted, which is fine. We always have the latitude to rewrite the KR based on what we learned during the quarter. No problem at all.
Awesome.
Fine.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. This was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Bye.